Yeah, very excited because, well, as you see on the screen there, we have 5 more stories to talk about. And as we're getting ready for 4th edition, actually, I think that the companion is going to be updated on December 17th. So you can go check everything out over there. And hopefully, some of this that we're going over will entertain you as you're flicking through the book and getting ready to paint some models. So, and as always, I am joined by Wiki Dave. What's happening, Wiki Dave?
Hi, Mark. I'm doing fine. I'm fine. It's a nice summer day here in New Zealand, where everyone in the northern hemisphere is freezing. We're here. I'm in my shorts right now because it's hot, so I'm happy.
Well, I'm jealous. So we have a snowstorm coming through right now. So I'm not
I
looking
would
forward to
love.
tomorrow morning.
I would love a cold winter, like a snow Christmas. That would be awesome. A white Christmas is something I've always wanted. So maybe one day. But yeah, we never have those. We just have barbecues and all that outdoors. And yeah, that's not really our thing.
Well, we just need to ship you up north sometime. So, but I was at Disney last week, and so I was enjoying some 30°C weather and relaxing while it was -11 back here at home. So, there
So,
you go.
so that's where you got us. Like you can go to Disneyland, you can do all that kind of stuff, and like, no, we don't have it. We have one theme park in New Zealand. It's like Rainbow's End, and it's up in Auckland. It's not even a theme park. It's a park with a roller coaster in it. That's pretty much it. Like it's not that great.
Well, we'll see if we can put down Auckland Disney down there for you. So I'll put in a good word.
That would be the dream. Anyway, we'll dive into part 2 of our short story reviews for 4th edition. Now, turns out what we found out after the first one is stories were going to be continued to come out to a point that we will be making a third part.
Yes,
and then in that third part, we'll start wrapping things up. And if no more short stories come out, we'll wrap it up there. But we'll see. We've got 4 more after this next batch of 5, and then we'll kind of do a bit of review of what's going. Well, how do we feel about these short stories? Which, to be honest, this is probably the most short stories we've actually gotten for like an event like ever. I think we're at 14 different short stories, which is quite impressive. I mean, Mark, you've been around the Mantic world a lot longer than I have. Have you ever had so many short stories come out in one time?
No, we usually get one. So, or maybe 2, but one's all I usually remember. This has been great. And the kind of neat thing, I mean, it would be great to have the Wing Tassar authors writing some. But one of the neat things is that, they're having members of the Mantic team take a shot at writing, Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool. So we're working through that, and some of these stories I've really enjoyed. So
yeah, I do agree, and it's quite interesting kind of things that I noticed in one particular story that I think a lot of people may have overlooked as well. So I'm really excited to go into that. And yeah, but before we do that, we're going to try a new segment here. So there's like 2 announcements here that I'm going to make here, for one for the next year and one for our podcast going forward. So I want to add a little bit kind of more, have segments and so forth in these law shows. So the first new segment that I'm going to introduce is question of the pod. So what we're going to do is we're going to pose a law question, and then we're going to reveal the answer at the end, and also see whether Mark can actually answer it. And you out there in the audience, obviously you're going to know the answer before this episode ends. So, I mean, there's no way for me to prove if you knew it before or after, but if you want, you could post it down below just before the episode finishes. Completely up to you, but that's what we're going to do. So the question for this time to start off with, the first question is, what short story in the Edge of the Abyss short stories compilation was completely reconned in a novel? So I'll say that again. What short story in the Edge of the Abyss compilation was completely reconned in a novel? Now, Mark, I don't want you to answer.
And I don't know the answer, so yeah.
You don't know the answer.
Not off the top. I have got an idea, and I will give you my guess at the end of the pod. So
at the end, all right, perfect. So that's
Absolutely.
The question for those out there, and we'll do that, and we'll jazz it up a little bit. in the future of what of different questions and so forth. It's a little bit of fun trivia to go along with the episode. The other second announcement I'm actually going to do is I've always wanted to start a bit of a painting lore competition, and ever since I've kind of entered into the Mantic sphere, it's what I've wanted to do. And after you always hear about the Warhammer Golden Demon competitions, I figured we'll start a Golden Celestian competition. Yeah. So for the entire year, we're going to have a painting competition for MUP, and it will be there'll be a chat or be a thread or a lobby, whatever, in Discord that actually will be open to everyone to post their entries throughout the entire year. And what we want is people to paint a model of a lore character, and it can be any lore character from the Pannilore universe. It could be even a ship. It could be, it could be a character that's only ever mentioned in a novel or a short story, or it could be an actual figure like one from Champions or one from Dragon Saga. Oh, not Dragon Saga, Dungeon Saga, sorry. So just anything, just whatever character, and it can't be a fan one. It just has to be one that has some lore established anywhere, no matter how minor it is, and all you need to do is post it in the lobby. That should be open at the time that this episode comes out, and at this time next year, we will decide a winner of the Golden Celestian. I don't know. I'm not sure what Celestian we'll model it over. I'm actually going to get a trophy made up throughout this will be a year process of me getting all the stuff together. I'll get a trophy. Not sure which Celestian. That could be. I'll put it out there for anyone's got any nominations. Could be Oskin, could be the Green Lady, could be whatever. We'll make it up, and then we'll send it out to you along with other prizes. So throughout the year, I also will be kind of building a little bit of a prize pot for those entering into the competition, and it will be based on how many people are actually entering the competition. So if only one person enters, I probably won't add a lot to it, but if we start to get a lot more entries, we'll go first, second, third place, and then I'll keep on adding prizes to the pot. So at the moment, the first place will get this. And I say this like people listening to it won't even know what I'm saying, but this Dungeon Saga Heroes of Kickstarter character box. You got four unique characters that were only exclusively for those that were in the Kickstarter for Dungeon Saga, the original Dungeon Saga, not Dungeon Saga Origins. And it has a few characters in there that were quite hard to find. I'm showing the camera, but you can't really see it. We've got Samgon, the Halfling Ranger, Nicola, Malone, which is the Half-Elf Thief, Funny Bone, which is the Undead Jester, and the Shadow Walker, which is the Human Assassin. Now, Samgon is actually based off Samuel L. Jackson. I think his full name is like a play on Samuel L. Jackson, and he actually has a cigar in his mouth. I think it's based off Pulp Fiction, the character from Pulp Fiction. So it's actually a very cool reference. And this is very rare. I got it off eBay for undisclosed amount of money because I shouldn't really have spent so much money on it. But ultimately, all the characters are in here, and that will be rewarded to the first place. But that's what the reward is right now. So the more entries we get over time, I'll add a bit more to the pot. And if anyone wants to donate anything, I'm even thinking about getting one of the authors of one of the Pannilore novels to just sign it and have a signed copy, and we can send it out to the winners as well. But there we go. So if you do want to enter in the competition, obviously pick your character, pick who it is, and then post it in our MUP Discord. And I'm excited. And throughout the year, we will kind of reveal the entries, and at the end of the year we'll do a big kind of compilation of all the entries, and it's quite hard to do it by audio podcast. It might be just a YouTube exclusive, just because it's hard to do an audio form of showing a painting competition winners, but ultimately that's a little bit of fun we're going to do. And I really want to push this Golden Celestian idea, which I'm hoping that if this year goes well, I could expand it to Halo and the other ones, and we could really just kind of have a lot of fun with it. What do you think of that? I only told Mark about this idea like today.
Yeah, like a couple, I don't even know if it was 2 hours ago. So, but yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, I mean, Mantic's got brushed with death that they do at Adepticon, but maybe we could also somehow slide in the Golden Celestian. I think that would be very cool. Maybe we'll bring it to Origins as well. So I don't
Yeah.
think we have brush with death there. So, it's a way that you can hit like a way station and, have a little competition there. So, well, we'll be developing this as it goes along. So,
Yeah. I'm
for
pushing
right
for it.
now, yeah, we
Yeah.
don't know how many people are going to enter, and
Yeah.
we'll keep it evolving. So
Exactly. And to be honest, if you are a tournament runner and you do painting competitions for the best paint army, use that phrase golden selection. I want that to be a thing. I'm not even going to claim ownership on it. I just want golden selection to be like a really cool, like when you hear golden selection, best painted Mantic. I like to think people will start just like you hear golden demon, you know what that is all about. So I don't know.
you go.
Just trying to push it. We'll see what happens there.
Fantastic.
Anyway.
Like the countercharger award. So, we got to add something else to the tournament scene, which I think would be very nice. So
exactly, and it's a little bit of friendly competition, and it's a way for me personally to help contribute to the wider community. If we can get a lot of people's creations out there, I think there's a lot of talented people, and not everyone is and plays the game or is the top player, but could be an amazing painter. So I do want to start to highlight a lot of that because. Yeah, this is a creative hobby, and the creative element of it is not really put on focus a lot of the time when you go to tournaments. It's just about the gameplay, which makes sense. It is a game at the end of the day, but it is a lot for a lot of people like myself. There are outlets in other ways like lore or just with the brush. So awesome. All right,
perfect.
So we're going to dive into the short stories. So we'll go over all the short story, or we've got to kind of run down the list here. So we've got Mage Song by a new writer. I don't think he's written by anything else, but that's Martin Pinnock, which I believe I got told he was like a stock boy for Mantic, but I think he's just like the supervisor that helps, kind of runs the warehouse from my understanding. Or the person who told me that was just joking, just to get one up on him. Don't know, but that's what I was told. So we've got Martin Pinnock doing Mage Song, The Passing Years by Matt Gilbert, you're going to have to help me.
There you go.
Valentina?
Something. Yeah, it's all right.
Matt Gilbert.
I call it Valencia, like the orange. So
we'll go Valencia. Why not? If it's wrong, just hate us then. I don't know.
Yeah. Matt, go ahead and correct us, please. Put the
there you go, Matt.
in the
I really want to get Matt on one of these things, just so I can. I really want, and I've put this out there. I've been trying to rope Matt and maybe even Ronnie into this, is just to do a lore, like the origins of all this lore and how it's evolved and how it's come to this point. Because I'm fascinated of how the early days of creating a world like this. Like you can't just rip off Warhammer or Lord of the Rings or anything. Like how did they come to this, Shining Ones and Wicked Ones, which seems simple enough on paper, but it's like, how did you come up with that decision? I would love to pick his brain when it comes to that kind of stuff. So maybe one day. Anyway, going through the list again, we've got The Sleep of Shindy Shia? Shindy. We'll call him Shindy. The Sleep of Shindy, which is by Martin Pinnock. And then finally, the Sermon.
Sermon.
Why am I in charge of reading all this out? I can barely read anything. Sermon of the Forefathers by Elliot Barrett. So we've got Elliot in there, who is, I understand, the webmaster. I think he's correct me if I'm wrong, because I think this is before my time. He created the companion and the Mantic brought him on, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know how that exactly happened, but he had another channel that I liked watching on YouTube, and where he did painting and stuff like that. And somehow they grabbed him, or somehow they connected, and then they brought him on, and he's done all the web design, and he puts the companion together. He also, is at Clash of Kings UK saving it if the companion's tournament function crashes or something like that. So I think he did not have to do anything to fix the program this year. So, but he was there. So he was sitting over there at the table and, ready, willing and able if something bad happened. But I know 2 years ago they had problems when I was there. So, but he put stuff together, I think maybe last year too. But
interesting.
No, but he's the guy that puts all the web stuff together. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I do know. Yeah, that he was brought on, and you would assume over years, and especially with the focus on the Halo side of things, that he probably has a lot more resources, and it's probably a lot more stable than it used to work. So it's good to see that he's stuck around and he's really refined it. I mean, me personally, I've already bought I think I got the companion once, but then I realized because I don't play the game much, there wasn't really a lot of need. There wasn't any like PDFs that are lore based or anything on there. I would like to see them involve the campaign, the companion to kind of include a lot of that stuff, even mainly the PDFs that are no longer obtainable. That second edition or first edition PDFs. I mean, you may think, well, we don't want to confuse people. To be honest, we like the people that play this game are so specific about rules and everything like that. If someone picks up first edition and assumes the fourth edition, they're probably not very good as a player to begin with. like if you confuse those
Oh,
two,
well, yeah.
it's
I mean,
very hard to like.
you can redact out the rule stuff if you need to, just to make sure there's nothing there. So, but
Well,
there's a
well,
lot of good lore that's there.
yeah, I
So,
think there's a lot of good
yeah.
lore, and I mean, you could make the argument of like, oh, we don't want people to, or like that law is going to be reconned, or that no longer law is applicable. I think it's fascinating from a hobby point of view, watching lore evolve, or watching because I mean, even Ozkin was called something else initially in first edition, and now he's called Ozkin. And I find that kind of stuff fascinating from just a development, just watching a franchise evolve and change. And I don't know, I think it's a shame to lose all that work that was put into that world forever, and for people not to be able to experience it for the first time and seeing how it's changed and evolved and that. Because if people want to get their hands on it, they will. I've seen a lot of it, first and second edition volumes online on eBay and all that. If people want to get their hands on it, they will get their hands on it. But it's going to cost them an arm and a leg. You might as well just like offer it as a subscription so people can just check it out themselves. And then I don't know. That's my opinion. Because that's
Well,
the
the
whole
other
point of
thing
this podcast,
Elliot
right?
did well. The other thing Elliot did well was he's going to be. Looks like he's figured out how to offer us individual STLs on the Mantic Vault. So for
Yeah,
purchase, that's awesome news. So
it has been something that a lot of people have asked for a while. And that makes sense. I mean, when a pack comes out, you don't, if you're just a pack like just Kings of War, you don't want to get firefight or dead zone stuff because you don't really care about that, but you want the dwarf that's included in that pack. So I'm very happy, and I think they need to do that to stay ahead of the game. Because there's going to be so much competition, especially from the digital space with STLs. Even Warhammer's done it. Games Workshop is diving their toes into it. They have to, in order to remain competitive, you have to give a competitive product. And if you're forcing people to buy stuff they don't want, that's not a competitive product because there's other companies not doing that. So in order, to stay competitive, this is something that you definitely need to do. And obviously they'll have the metrics behind the scenes to see whether that's a good or bad choice. But ultimately, having more options for consumers can never be a bad thing, and it can only help the hobby, especially in a hobby that is quite expensive as it is, and continues to be expensive. When a lot of people argue it probably shouldn't be. Like, let's be honest. Like a lot of the times, there's a bit of a markup on it, and most of the time, the markup is only because it's already high. It doesn't have to stay high just because it's high. So. I don't know. That's me going on a bit of a rant there. Anyway.
well, I'm looking forward to seeing the lizard men go up there. So salamanders.
Yeah, that'll be really good. Yeah, so the first army will be salamanders. Yeah, that's a good point. Salamanders are going to be the first ones that go up, and I think that's going to be really cool to see a full STE. And we're going to get a lot of units that we haven't seen before, like Cododons, or I think that was Cododons.
Commandant.
Yeah, and a lot of the other ones, but we'll probably do a breakdown when they're fully released. Anyway, so we'll do the first story here because we kind of went off track. That's a good ADHD in me. We're going to go over Mage Song by Martin Panic. So as we said before, from my understanding, Martin works for Mantic, and he works more of the warehouse side of it. I put him down as a warehouse supervisor. Someone could have been messing with me. I don't actually know your role. So, Martin, if you're out there and you're listening, look, I'm sorry. That's what I was told. Just let me know what you actually do. and I can update it on the wiki. But I think this is the first story that I've heard. Have you heard of Martin before all this, Mark? Because I mean, obviously you're more of the aged professional here.
Yep, nope, I haven't. So
Okay.
definitely a mystery. And Martin, please feel free to reach out to us.
Cool. All right, so we'll read through the story. So this story takes place in 3870, which we've now established is when the Zerkali Empire is actually invading. So this is happening around the same time. So a force of elves were fighting back a group of goblins, which was led by Broadleaf. Let's call this the picture that's Broadleaf there. After defeating the recent attack, Broadleaf ordered to set up camp, and as soon as his tent were pitched, he would retire and commune with the mage, which we don't know who the mage is. It's kind of ambiguous who the mage is. Broadleaf needed to find out where the goblin army was encamped and how many there were. So he was going to contact the mage and find out where all these goblins are to eliminate the threat, because they keep on getting attacked. As they were setting out camp, the goblins returned and they charged at the force of elves. Despite the archers taking a number of goblins, the goblins didn't retreat this time, as it seemed like they were running in fear from something, which ultimately proved fatal for the goblins, which they ended up getting slaughtered as a result, because they didn't turn back. The goblins just kept on going at the elves. The attack was then continued by these strange large cats, which I put in brackets, probably lion snarls, as we know now. The lion kind of ones the Zerkali army has. And they were attacked by kindred tall spear. Oh, sorry. The lion snarls attacked the kindred tall spears line that they had formed to try and hold back this wave of new force that was coming at them. However, that eventually broke the elves, and Broadleaf had to fall back and retreat. Broadleaf retreated and then looked back, spotting Himalon, the cat. He spotted the dog. He spotted one of the humanoid dogs.
All dogs,
and he unknowingly witnessed the arrival of the Zerkali Empire on the plains of Istakar. So that was the story, and it was basically about these, them fighting out of the goblins, their normal force, and all of a sudden, Zerkali Empire came and kind of just overwhelmed them and kind of flooded through, kind of wiped out the goblins and the elves at exactly the same time. So now's the question of the day, Mark. What was the point of the story?
I think the points, just as we mentioned at the end, it's the beginning of the Zerkali Empire invasion. So, this is it. This is them hitting the shore, and D-Day has happened, and they're coming on shore. In Calenspire, they mentioned a little bit about this. I mean, some of the numbers that they mentioned in there with the number of troops involved are mind-numbing. Like the one ship, they were talking about 20,000 warriors. Like, man, that's got to be a lot of ships. So, but
there's 4 claws, remember? So we've got So this is attacking Istakar. So this is actually on the other side. When you look at the standard Calenspire, this is on the other side of the land as well. So this is not this is a different force, you could say.
Right. So, but yeah, the numbers are huge. So they're attacking, I'll say, in the millions of warriors. So, this is just the first overwhelm. You're reading the story. It's like, oh, okay, the elves are beating up the goblins. Very cool. And then all of a sudden, woof, they're both gone.
So you think the point is to establish that this is the Zerkali is attacking and just overwhelming things.
Welcome. They're attacking now. So yes, that's what I think. What do you think?
All right. I'm just going to quickly, hopefully, show this. There we go. So this is my theory. Now, I do think you're right. I think this is to point out the attacking that is occurring. However, so we know they're kind of attacking this. There's 4 claws, so we know there's kind of 4 points of attack. There was down here, so this is where the stand at Calenspire is down here. Now we do know that there was a story here, Issa, which is the one that the Traveler, the one with Guinness's niece there. What was her name? Coming with the one from Champions, the Basilean champion.
Oh, I can't believe that it's just dropped right on my
I can't
head.
remember. Anyway, that it was
Alanis
based off the short.
Callistus.
That's it.
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
Darissa. So Darissa was where the Traveller took place. So that short story that we covered last time. But the interesting thing is they're talking about elves in Istakar, which normally elves are down here in Elven. So I think these are actually Eastern kindred elves, which we don't actually have a lot of information on. So they could be Eastern kindred elves that are somehow all the way over here in the Istakar, kind of fighting back goblins, but then now they're getting overwhelmed by the Zerkali empire kind of blazing through. So I'm guessing they're kind of going to be blazing through here and kind of be starting to fall into the dwarf realm, because that's the capital of Karangolok. And so they're kind of going from there. So I think the point of the story is, one, to establish elves are settled in this area as well. They're not just down in Elvenholm down here. They're actually settled up here. And I'm guessing they're or north, south, eastern kindred elves, which we don't have a lot of information on. And also that they're basically just the Zerkalis are just raving through here. And I'm guessing that's trying to indicate that the dwarfs are probably going to have a bit of a conflict when it comes to here. And well, it makes sense because there is hints that they're trying to disestablish all magic and get up north as well. So they're going to have to go to the Harpy Mountains. Yep. And if you look in the Harpy Mountains over here, where the Harpy Rift happens, so that's for context, that's here in Craighard. Right here is where Harpy's Rift happens. So that's where the rift is, and the rift has never went away. It just got sealed. So it's still there. So the theory is that the Zerkalis are going to rage through here and try and take ownership of that particular rift for one reason or another, whether it's just because they don't trust everyone else to look after the rift or to be attached to the rift. But yeah, that's my theory anyway.
Yeah, interesting to think. Well, I think that's very interesting. Also, I mean, an odd thing could be that, the elves are going to be in the next book. So maybe that's why they're getting mentioned.
What's the next? So the book that we're getting this time, it's going to have Zerkali Empire, Halflings, Trident Realm, and it feels like there was another one.
What's that? Salamanders.
Salamanders, yeah, Salamanders. So we don't know what's going to be in the next book after that. Now, it's a bit vague of when it's going to release. Some people say it's 6 months. Every 6 months we get a new book. I don't think it's going to be that tight of a timeline. I think they're going to spread all these books out for the entire 4th edition, and I don't think they should be doing it every 6 months. If they release one every year, I think everyone would be happy enough. But the next one is called Fracture. So we had the first book, the one that's coming out is called Invasion. The next one is called Fracture. So it could be elves, well, them fracturing their kind of dominance, and I don't know. It'll be quite interesting. And also, a lot of people think elves is the one faction that really needs a revamp in terms of models.
Well, the other one is dwarfs, and you could have a fracture between the imperial dwarfs and the free dwarfs. Because Gallic may just roll it up and head tail and zip up north to the to the abyss and go hang out with his little buddies up there, and maybe we don't know how the coming. And their models are old and definitely need a refresh, and Ronnie. So, but I've heard floating on the wind that potentially it's forces of nature. Now I don't know if forces of nature end up with fracture, but and I don't have a story from them. So, but elves I think would be a natural. So, and if they do the elves would be good. Yeah, if they do the elf models like they did, and some of the other ones that they've done, for the games. And, I think we've seen some really cool elf models. I think we've seen some really cool dwarf models too, in particular with Vanguard. So, you've got the style established. They could just flesh out the entire range there. So,
yeah, it's a good opportunity to do it. I mean, we also don't want Mantic to be so locked in with their plans that they don't change. Because they're running a business at the end of the day. They need to be able to have to pivot, and sometimes having a 5-year plan doesn't always work when the plan doesn't work from day dot. So we don't know how this this is working behind the scenes or anything like that. So we don't actually know whether they're going to stick to this revamping or the 6-month schedule. But I think elves are prime for it, and I would like to see that all the models revamped and just something to make them stand out. But you make a very, very solid point there. But ultimately,
I think arrogance is where they should end up, but
well, I mean, you don't want to be too arrogant, because at the end of the day, if you knew everything, you would be on top. Like you wouldn't need to be fighting for competition points if you were on top. So you always want to be open to feedback and open to pivot and be open to change, because that's the only way you win in life, is to admit you're wrong and also correct your behavior. That's the way that's why I've always been taught. Anyway, so I guess we'll go back to the actual topic at hand, Mage Song. What did you feel about the story? Did you like it? Were you it's all right? Yeah. How you feel?
I thought it was good. Ranking them in the top 5 here. I don't know, kind of middle of the pack. I'll say 3 of the 5.
Yeah, I would say it was about 3. Yeah, I would say it's definitely. I would say it's about 3 in the middle of it. I mean, this is quite hard because it's a small selection here. I mean, it all comes down to what you're interested in as well. I don't really care for goblins. I don't really care for elves. So I'm like, it's a nice story. I mean, it's also hard to get invested in characters that they've just been introduced and you have no context behind them. Like, is Broadleaf an actual good character's going to show up again? Is it even a character we will ever care about again? So it's quite hard.
Well, he's dead, so it's going to be hard to do that.
Well, I don't think he's dead. It just implies that he's fallen back. I think he retreated. His force got defeated. It doesn't necessarily mean he's dead. So I like to.
I guess
unless they say his head got cut off, I'm a bit on the fence about it.
Well, we'll see. So, but there you go. Right. You could use Broadleaf and your interpretation of him for the Golden Celestian contest.
Exactly, and because there's no description, you pretty much just make him a wicked-looking elf.
Absolutely.
A wicked-looking Eastern kindred elf, which we don't really have a long context of what they look like. I think there is some images of elves riding like a chariot in the desert and stuff, and they've got a little bit of a different look. There is some art on that, but yeah, that's little things that you can do here. But here's a character you can definitely do for the Golden Celestian competition, because there's a lot of art for him, and that's Olaf.
Yeah.
Olaf Skull.
I say Orloff, but yeah.
We'll call him Olaf because
Frozen. So, but
yeah, I think that's why I don't. There's got to be like that on purpose, right? I mean, the Frozen I think came out around about when the original Dungeon Saga came out, did it? I don't know. We'll call him Olaf because that's funny, and I want to do it that way. so we'll read out the story, and the story is The Passing Years, and this is by Matt Gilbert. So in the year 3870, so again, this is the same time as the Zerkali invasion. Olaf arrived back home. I'm just imagining Olaf now.
I know, that's what you do.
Olaf arrived back home and ate a supper which was still hot. Olaf reflected on his current older age and thought about his past companions, Royden, Margarina, Starskin, and Denethor. Olaf also remembered how fame and wealth had changed Olaf from what he was until Carlon found him at his lowest point. Carlon? No. Brought Olaf back to the Northern Alliance after finding him in a ditch. It's actually a little bit of kind of a sad kind of story when you think about it. After the defense of Chill, Olaf spoke to Tannilore Iceskin, the leader of Talinar. That's it. Talinar Iceskin, who is the leader of the Northern Alliance, and requested to retire from the front lines, which Talinar granted. Olaf joined the Witten. So that Witten is the council that runs the Northern Alliance. It was set up, the Witten, Witan, and would like to lead and would lead the household protection for the White Pylon, which housed the Shining One Azeron, which is a new reveal that we found out, Azeron.
Yeah.
also known as the Oracle.
Or
Olaf snapped out of his thought by his bride wife Brigga, who had arrived home. Brigga then flirtatiously led Olaf to bed. So there's actually a little bit here to process. So first off, Mark, what was the point?
I think the point is to reveal what the big secret that the Northern Alliance was hiding. So
Correct.
they rolled this out and announced the Shining One. So
Correct. So the Shining One, Azeron, which has long been rumored that that's what they were protecting, because all the Shining Ones typically are in Mount Coluso, and all, holding up there. But for years and years and years, there's been hints, and you actually can go back to the Edge of the Abyss novels. I think there was the Crimson Winter. I believe there's a story there of Aurora, and they mention, and everyone thought Aurora was that the Shining One. That was speaking to the main character in that book. But it looks like it's Azeron. Now, whether Aurora and Azeron is the same person, it's been hinted to me, based on me probing, that they are the same one and that Aurora's name was always Azeron. It's just they used Aurora as like a cover. So I think they're the same person. So that would make a little bit of sense based off the story that we had with Crimson Winter. But also, at least the question of why are they protecting this one? Why is this one so special when you look at where all the other Shining Ones are? Why is this one hidden away? And my theory is it's got something to do with winter. Because after the Winter's War, after Winter was killed, in brackets, Winter seemed to dissipate rather than get killed. And she kind of vanished, and there wasn't any indication of what happened from that point. And then ever since then, we've always had, like, Talana was speaking to a voice during the Harpy's Rift of, something being released and something, and it could be, and this is again a theory, Azeron is what's stopping Winter from arriving back. And so the reason why they all want to get this one is to release Winter back into the world. Which still doesn't make sense because, how is that possible? Maybe the Azeron is the shining half of Winter. And for some reason, we're going to learn that, the shining and the wicked ones, when they're split, there is still that strong connection that one still has power over the other one, maybe in some way, has some kind of binding mind of being able to control something like this. But it's hard to know. But Mark, do you have any theories on that?
Well, I'll say that that's a pretty good theory, and that you have that it's a shining version of Winter. But the other thing is, I think in the name they call her the Oracle. It's like so she can see, into the future to a certain extent, and so that's how the Northern Alliance seems to be holding out against all its enemies. They can see the abyssal dwarves coming. They can kind of predict a little bit in advance where the Night Stalker attacks are going to be, even though they're coming out of the rift and everything else like that. So that's why I think they've got her locked down. She's kind of like a super cool crystal ball, and they're also protecting her. And, maybe she's, feeling some kind of pain or threat, or she's sick, or, so they're helping her as well. And they're getting the Oracle stuff as a benefit. So that's how I run it through my head right now. So
possibly. I mean, they've been there for years, and Talana has been, that you can read Harpy's Rift, and Talana is talking to somebody, which I'm assuming is her now.
Yes.
And she's basically encourages them that, hey, you have to help here. You have to do something here. You can't just sit and watch this happen. You're going to have to do something. So I think maybe she has the foresight of being able to see the future, or it could be just the fact of she can just see things. She can see things coming and what's going to happen. I mean, if she can see the future, there'll be a reason why she's staying there, right? Like if she knows this big force is coming to get her, and we know Champions, that story is kind of molded towards everyone going up north. Maybe she's like, oh, everything's going to be fine if I stay here. Or it could be the fact of, it could be one of those ones, I have to die. This has to happen. This bad thing has to happen for the side of good to win. It could be that kind of angle as well. So it could be yeah, it could be different angles there. I'll be interested to see how this evolves, and I think it's really cool to see Olaf again. It's interesting to see that he's still alive. I mean, it makes me think of, because we don't actually know when Dungeon Saga occurs. There has never been a date being put on it. So humans in Pannilore typically live as normal humans age. So you could say around about 80 years old. So he's you could argue he's around about 50s, 60s.
Yeah,
That's
I'd
from
say
a
that
warrior point
50,
of view.
60, yeah.
So it makes you think, when did Dungeon Saga occur? And let's say it's 3870 right now. So if you say like 50s, he was probably in his
20s,
30s ish. So it could be, but it would be before the Edge of the Abyss, which was in 3850. So that was like 20 years ago. So let's say if it was 30 years ago, a Dungeon Saga could have occurred around about 3800 and maybe 40. That sounds like a reasonably all right timeline. So yeah, it's cool to actually see him around. It does recon the novel. There was a book based off Dungeon Saga that kind of goes into a lot of the personal stuff, including Olaf's wife's name, which wasn't Brigga. But then again, it could
could be his second wife.
It could be a second wife, and he did say bride wife. It could be as many bride wives. It is the Northerners, and they may have a different way of marriage when it comes to marriage, when it comes to all that. But yeah, Brigga was, I'm just trying to find the name on the wiki as I bounce through it and delay. But Brigga was previously called Elda, Eldea. That was in the Dwarf King's Quest novelization, which also says that Olaf has 13 kids, and he named one after the elf from Dungeon Saga as well. So whether that's still canon, not sure, but it's interesting to see see her, even for her to be recognized as well in a book that was quite a while ago. But yeah. I really liked it. It's one of my it's probably my favorite of the 5 batches. Yep. I think it's just there's a lot to sink your teeth into. And it's interesting to have a mention of Clarion, which is a hero in the Northern Alliance army. That is a hero unit. What was that, sorry?
Yeah, he has a miniature. He was part of the miniature little diorama where he was fighting the Night Stalker.
Yeah, so I think he's riding a ram as the model that they use, but he's never been mentioned in canon before. This is the first time he's actually been mentioned, and he was basically a representative. Yeah, that's it. God, my words. Why do I do this? Of the Northern Alliance, and he actually found Olaf when he was in Agada at his lowest. So it seems like with Olaf, he got real famous from everything he did in Dungeon Saga. He got his ass kicked during the Destiny of Kings. I think it was the book. Destiny of Kings, which is how they opened up the Abyss. That's what led to the Edge of the Abyss. So the forces of good kind of lost that, and he was involved during the Destiny of Kings, but he wasn't involved in the Edge of the Abyss. So my theory, got real famous from Dungeon Saga, got his ass kicked in Destiny of Kings, and then kind of went down a rabbit hole of Feyre, and then eventually he was rescued by the Northern Alliance and brought back. And that's essentially Olaf's kind of story. So it's good to see him there. I hope they give him a conclusion, that he doesn't just die away of old age. And I do hope because we got Royden as well from Dungeon Saga. He's in the new book, Argument of Stone book. He's in there, and he was in Pride of the King. We don't know Denethor. We don't know the mage from
Danor,
Dungeon Saga.
Don't know.
But Margaretha, she's the daughter of the King of the Elves. So I mean, she's still around, and she was mentioned in the Armada books as well. So she's still doing her thing and around. But it's good to have the Fab Four be part of the story still, and I hope we see a little bit more of them. Doesn't look like he's actually a hero though for the Northern Alliance, which is a little bit disappointing.
Yeah.
In the book.
Well, well, I mean, he's retired, so to speak. So
yeah, fair enough. So. Anyway, Mark, what do you feel about the story? Where does this rank for you?
Number 1. It was
Number
my
one.
favorite.
There you
It
go.
also surprised me at the end, with Briga and everything. It just I was not expecting that out of a Mantic story on their website. It just kind of,
I
surprised me a
do.
little bit. But it was my
Yeah.
absolute favorite one because you love Orloff. You've seen
Mm.
him, in so many different places, and he's a character you know. So it was like, oh, cool. I'm reading about him. So yeah, this
Yeah.
one was
Legacy
my favorite,
characters are so
hands
important.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, hands
Legacy
down, best
characters are
one.
so important to bring in and talk about a lot more. And I think that's where Mantic have fallen away a little bit. I mean, when you look at Warhammer, you've got like Gotrek and Felix. I always go to them because they for me are a representation of what legacy characters are in a franchise like this. And I think Mantic need stuff like that. So having Olaf around, obviously he's really old at this point. How much influence he's going to have the story is a bit small, but you can bring in Royden. I think that's quite important to use. You've got so many different heroes that have been mentioned in a lot of the Wing Hussar books, which would be so important to bring a lot of those characters back. And especially the Celestians, I think they're overdue for like, what have they really been up to for the years that they've been hiding out on the Mount? I was very impressed. I was very happy when they brought it into the story. And yeah, I'm happy. That was a really good
Very
story. A
cool.
plus.
Yeah, it was a good story. Yeah, definitely go read this one. So, particularly if
Cool.
you're a Dungeon Saga fan or you followed
Yeah.
Orloff in any way, shape, or form, definitely go check it out. It's a good story.
He is, and it's a very good character for the Golden Celestian competition. I think he's a really good one.
There you go.
All right, so let's move on to the next one. Valentina Tita. Val and
Valentica. Valentia.
Valentica.
Yeah.
We'll call it
I'm
Val
gonna go.
because it's
I'm
got to
going
be
with
embarrassing.
Valencia.
Valencia. We'll go Valencia. Why not? Because it sounds like a real thing.
It's
All right.
an orange.
Yeah.
So, what the
All
hell?
right. So the Valencia is written by Matt Gilbert. Which Matt, come on, you've got too much. You got too much on, mate. Take a break. You're writing a lot. Anyway, the story takes place in 3856. So that's we're looking at what 14?
14
Yeah,
years.
14 years before the invasion. So it's 6 years after the Edge of the Abyss events, but 14 years before the invasion. So in 3856, the city known as Valencia, an undercover Ophidian human named Rapathur was using the secret identity of Master Bodwin to infiltrate Valencia's government. Now, I assumed they're Ophidian. They could be part of the Zakali Empire. What do they call the Yarn? It could be a yarn as well. It's kind of vague. I got the interpretation it's Ophidian just because they mentioned God Kings and stuff in there, so I'm assuming it's Ophidian.
Oh, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. So Rapier had risen his way through the inner circle of Lord Druvid's advisors. Rapier was having a meeting with an ogre called Mutagok, a human called Jazz, and a goblin named Bog. Rapier was assigning them to the next target, an organization known as the Hand of Freedom, which were an anti-Dreveld cult. It's cool they're bringing back Dreveld, Lord Dreveld. He was the one that pretty much caused the halflings to abandon the League of Roydena. He's also the one that built the wall because he is based off a particular person that really wanted to build a wall. And he basically was trying to dismantle all the other kingdoms around so he can take power. And it's good to see him come back, and also to know he's still alive in 3856. But we also know he was alive during the breaking of the League of Roydena, which was in 3866. So we know he's still around for a while. Spymaster Sori's agents had been watching the group of the Hand of the Freedom, and Rapier had come to the conclusion that they will disrupt his plans. Rapier assigned the group of Mutagok, Jazz, and Bog to find a tailor on Wim Street who had a book of names and operations of the organization. Once obtained, he directed Mutagok and Jazz to take out the members when they all met up, and Bog was assigned to obtain the amulet, which was from the other non-member of the Hand of Freedom. Once they killed the remaining members, they will need to take out the heads of the Hydra. that was not attending before they had a chance to realize what was happening. And yeah, that's the end of the story. So basically, it was just a meeting, and these three were being assigned to take out this anti-Draveld cult called the Hand of the Freedom, which we assume they were successful, but it's very vague on what happened after that point. So I guess, Mark, I'm going to hit you up with what was the point?
This one I'm not sure. So it's 14 years earlier. The only thing I can say, the only connection I see is Ophidia. So because you've got the Zerkali basically coming from Ophidia, and so I think that's it. But that's about all I got out of it. So how about you, Dave? This one stumped me a little bit.
Honestly, I have no bloody idea. Like the best, the best I've got is I think you're right about Ophidia. I think this is maybe their way of acknowledging Ophidia is part of the story still in fourth edition, that they will have a role. Yes, they may not have a role right now. We know there is some history there with the Zerkali Empire and the Ophidia, but maybe this is trying to point out that Ophidia, despite the fact they've not really played a big part of the story or being a playable faction or anything like that, they have been in this world and infiltrated all these or they basically have been doing stuff in the background that has been influencing world politics in Pannilore. And I think this is their way of highlighting that. And that so eventually we're going to Ophidia is going to launch onto the field some way, maybe in a bigger way. And this is their way of saying, hey, we have hinted the fact that Ophidia is there. You guys just weren't paying attention. So that's my theory.
Yeah. I think Ophidia's coming. Matt, it's got to. Matt's been working on that army list for years. So
I get why though, because it is an undead human faction, which we've already got enough of. Like I get too many undead factions can be frustrating.
Yeah, I get that, but for some reason, yes, you have to make them unique. Yes, you have to somehow get them. They're kind of isolated. How are their forces going to be fighting with anybody else? But to me, I consider them a big part of the Pannilore story. I think a lot of it began in the cradle, I guess the cradle of civilization, you could say down there. I think they've had a huge influence on the world. So, but again, if they get an army, why are they messing around with everybody else? Are they going to be the big army that, comes to counter the Zerkali and stuff them back in the bottle? Is that why Ophidia comes on the scene? Who knows? But it'd be great to see an army come out.
Yeah, we know that there's some history there, and it would be surprising that Zerkali, look at what Ophidia are doing, because they do dabble with magic. The God Kings are basically immortal undead people. They are messing around with magic, so for the Zerkali Empire not to pay attention is quite interesting. But actually, if we go back to this idea that you had, about the rule books of what's coming next and what armies, when we go through the list of all the books that they've announced, like Invasion, and then we know the next one's Fracture, we know the next one after that's Arrogance, then Renation, then Alliance. The last one though has been a bit intriguing when I saw it, because I assumed it was Undead. The last one is Death, the last book. So that's the sixth book to come out, is called Death. And I mean, if you say like, all right, what's going to be in the book of people that represent kind of that, you've got the undead, but what else do we have? I mean, you've got the Empire of Dust, right? But I mean, that's it. I mean, there's not really a third one at the moment. So I mean, I don't think there's a third one. Yeah, you got undead. No one did. Let's not go into that, because that's just a shit show. We've got Emperor of Dust, and then maybe you got Ophidia. Maybe that's when they're going to introduce Ophidia, which, give it a couple of years, it looks like, and a couple of years of teasing. I think they could fit an Ophidia with that one there, but I can't think of any other. There's no other undead armies, are there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come out with. We're supposed to get 3 or 4 armies per book. So right now you had 3, but I don't know when the Twilight Kin are going to come out, because the Twilight Kin are down in that
Yeah.
area, so maybe
Twilight King,
we'll
yeah. I
see.
mean, it would be
Twilight
a little
Kin
bit too
along with the
much.
3 undead. So that'd be
Yeah.
huge. But, maybe Twilight Kin's going to be that 4th army. Ophidia would be number 1. And then you'd have Undead and Empire of Dust. And, and then you would have maybe Twilight Kin or something at the end. That one's kind of a reach, but, the Twilight Kin like to kill people. So, that fits in with death for me at least.
Yeah, Ophidia has always been seen as a good side. They're not really been evil. They're kind of just been existing, and they're more neutral. But they, during the Rise of Celestians, they're definitely on the good side of things. I would like to see them, have this human undead hybrid. You got skeleton camels, and you got things like that. And I would like to see a good undead, if that makes sense. Like the reason why I gravitate to noble undead was because there is a story. I think Mark Barber writes the story of Hero Fallen, of this vampire who doesn't want to kill. He doesn't really want to be a vampire. He's stuck being a vampire, and he kills only because he has to, and he justifies it in his head of like, that person's actually a bad person, so it's okay for me to kill him. And when he gets when he's trying to act like he's still the bad guy, he's trying to do the least worst thing to play along. So I like to think that in a world like this, having a good undead side is plausible, and I'll be interested to explore that a little bit. And Ophidia would be a good faction to do that with.
Right. Yeah. And it also makes it Mantic. There's not many good undead factions out there in the tabletop wargaming world. So, and it would be a good way to evolve the noble undead. And, our man Jarvis is an Ophidian. So, it all fits together. It'd be very cool. So but that is my guess for the Death Book, the last one.
I'm actually at the moment. Jarvis was never actually a Ophidian. He just studies the Ophidian.
Yeah, I still say he's an Ophidian. That's just me.
Actually, no, you could be right. It goes Jarvis, also known as Jarvis Ophidia Obsessed Academic.
Yes.
But it doesn't say he's Ophidian. He just says obsessed with it. But yeah, I get your point.
Hey,
it's me being pedantic.
I'm gonna
me just being a dog. Yeah, fair enough. Cool. So what did you rate the story? Where would you put it?
That one. Boy, I'll say number 4.
Number 4. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's probably where I would rate it as well. There's a lot of assumption that we're doing to make it seem a lot better than it is, but there isn't a lot there without it being obvious. So in hindsight, the story might be more important, but at the moment, it's kind of a lot of these stories could be more important once we've got a little bit more context. So we're already only just going by what we've got.
Right.
Cool. All right, we'll flick over to the next one, and this is another story written by Martin Pennick.
Yep.
The Sleep of Shindy's. Yeah, I'm going to call him Shindy because it's just easier.
Shindyshire.
Because it's got a T. That's what throws me off. Shindit. Shindy.
Shindishire.
We'll call him Shindy. All right. Shindy. Okay, there we go. So we'll start the Sleep of Shindyshire. So the first bit of the story takes place in negative 1975. So it's sorry, not negative, 19. Sorry, 975.
975. It's like, wow.
Correct.
Okay, that was the first thing that caught my attention. It's like, okay.
So this is 975 years before the Shining and the Wicked Ones were created. No, take that back. It was 975 years before the Abyss was created, because the Shining and Wicked Ones were created before the Abyss, and the Abyss is what started year 0. And this actually takes place after the Celestians' war with the Alderman. So I'm assuming these guys are Ophidian, but they're kind of in peace with Celestians and stuff. But the Celestians have already arrived by this point. So Shindy was part of a ceremony progression that was traveling for several days. As the drums played, they reached their destination, which was a chamber inside a cliff. Once inside the room, the high priest motioned the dancers to start circling the whole entourage and began chanting. Eventually, the high priest slashed one of the dancers, which simultaneously The throats of the other dancers were also cut, and the music died. Some blue magic forks of fire raced between the priest and every other figure in the chamber. Shindi's flesh began to dry and crack, and everything went black as the entrance of the chamber collapsed. And then we jump ahead by 3,711 years later to the year of 2,736. Shindy was then woken up by grave robbers attempting to break into the chamber, and the high priest sent a message to Shindy telepathically to attack the intruders, and that's where the story ended. So basically, yeah, this is part of that conversion that we see with people in that area. The problem is, like, I'm not sure if they're from Ophidia or Oman. If they're Oman, that would make them evil, but if they're Ophidia, make them good. So I don't really know what side of the fence they lie on. I'm assuming they're part of the Emperor of the Dust, and that's my interpretation of them.
Yeah, well, the picture tells you EOD, so
yeah, but there's nothing in the story specifically to mention that, but there's also no picture of Ophidia. So I don't know if it was Ophidia and what picture would they use. So it's the same kind of thing. But anyway, Mark, we'll go for the classic question. What was the point?
That EOD will be in 4th edition. That's what I came up with. I mean, it's so like way out of it, the timeline and everything else like that. And so it was a story basically of, somebody getting turned into, the undead. And then, he gets to fight later on as, somebody comes in and is trying to rob the grave. So that's what I got out of it. How about you, Dave?
I don't know what the point was. Like, I don't.
Another one of this.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at it. Like the other stories, at least I can come up with something. Like there's some kind of thread to go on. Like the last story with Ophidia. This story, there's nothing that relates to anything that's happening. I mean, that maybe to indicate that there's a lot of these chambers just spread everywhere, and that they could be, put to sleep for thousands of years and then just reawoken, and then that's the reason why something in the future is going to happen. I just don't. This feels like one of those stories that it needed to be a little bit more obvious what the point is, unless that's the point of the story, is for people not to make sense of it until hindsight. But considering these are stories of 4th edition trying to hype things up, I don't know. This doesn't feel like a well-placed story for whatever this is. So,
well, I mean, if the second part took place in 3870, now we'd be talking. The grave robbers would be the Zerkali or something like that.
Correct.
But I mean, you're still 1,000 years out of date.
So, over 1,000 years before the invasion happened.
Right.
I mean, it's the Zerkali Empire may have existed at that point, but it's still not clear, why. I mean, it feels like if you really wanted this to have meaning, you should have maybe thrown Jarvis in there. Like maybe the grave was being disturbed by Jarvis.
Then? Yeah.
Oh no! Just change the year. Change the year to
change the year. Existed. Definitely. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's just so far out of the timeline. So you've got me looking at dates now. So it's like, okay, well, that's 1,100 years off. Okay, so what's the point?
I mean, I try to look through, and that's why I asked the question of what's the point in this one, because I am struggling with it. I look through the timeline around that particular time of year based off everything we know now. Mantic hasn't been great with dates, but recently they've been trying to fix that. And really, like, the birth of Basileia only occurred 100 years, or not even 100 years, like 80 years before this. So, like, it's really, like, early on in the timeline, but there's nothing really around this time that occurs. So I feel like this may be a story that will make more sense in hindsight once we have maybe the 4th edition book or something else is happening in their plans, that when we look back on the story, like, so that year relates to this event that was happening at the same time.
Right.
But this is me just really, again, just grasping at straws for something I'm just coming up with. So.
Right. Well, the key is awakened by the grave robbers. So who are the grave robbers? I mean, that's where the tie-in is. You just don't know who that is.
Maybe, unless they made a mistake in terms of the year. But I mean, it seems like if you were going to reveal something here about the grave robbers, who they are, they probably would have put that into the end of the story to end it off. All it was, it just sounds like they just awoke and then, they're awake again. So
Yeah,
I don't
they're
know.
dungeon fodder, like any good
Yeah.
D&D adventure. Here comes the skeleton. You
Yeah.
just
So
get to hear the story. That's the way I
yeah.
thought reading the story.
Yeah, it could be that, but as a result, in terms of what context the story was released in, and the time when this was released, and the purpose of it, it's probably it's my 5. It's the one at the bottom of the list for me, because I just didn't get why it was here, and it didn't really contribute anything to the overall narrative of 4th edition or anything that we know of right now. Could be wrong, and I'm sorry. This is not to say anything about Martin's writing, anything like that. It's just the purpose of the story just wasn't there for me.
Yeah. Well, it's
What
not
about
my
you, Mark?
last one.
That's not your last one.
We haven't talked about my last one yet. So,
so we've only got one more to go. So we'll go over to that. The Sermon of the Forefathers by Elliot Barrett again. So
sorry, Elliot.
we're not going to go through the actual scripture of the story, because it's basically a tome, and the only way to really go through it all is to read out the entire story, which we're not going to do that. So basically, the story comprises of scripture written in the year -1000, which is 95 years before. 95 years after the arrival of the Celestians, regarding the dwarves' perspective on elves, humans, and themselves, and also the Celestians. They do acknowledge them in there, and it's known as the Sermon of the Forefathers, and it's basically written on a tome in Karen Golok, which is the capital of the dwarves. So, Mark. No. Just before we I would say read it yourself. It's on the wiki as well, because it's a tome. It's an item. I have actually put the whole thing on the wiki because it's an item that's located. Right. So I would say, Mark, what was the point? Do you have any idea?
For me, it's just saying that the elves and dwarfs are in the next book. So because here they are again, So, but yeah. I don't know. This one I got to the end, and it's very short, and
it is very short.
And it I got to the end of it, I'm like, well, okay, next. So
well, the funny thing is, I don't think you realize it, but this actually revealed 2 things about this that we didn't know of. Now, when you read the story, do you realize it's not actually it's taking place at a particular time, because it says, I'm reading the story now.
Okay.
It says ancient tablet held in the great vault of Karen Golok. Now, Karen Golok was renamed after Golok took power. So it means we're reading the story after the dwarf capital was moved and after Golok took over power. So it means that there's a purpose to that this story is being read by somebody at a particular time, but not in -1000 when it was actually written. So we're reading this as a modern day dwarf reading this tablet. Right. And what the other thing it also reveals is that the dwarfs knew about the Celestians before they met them, because Balcon met the dwarfs 20 years after this was written. So the dwarves actually already knew about the Celestians before they actually made contact with them 20 years, because in Rise of the Celestians, Balcon goes off to meet with these dwarves that he's heard about. And it's kind of implied that this is the first time they were actually meeting together and actually, discovering each other. But it turns out the dwarves found out about the Celestians before that. So the question is, how did they know about the Celestians? Because they didn't have a relationship with the humans at the time, because the humans even saw them as a myth. But there is later revealed that the elves and the dwarfs had a confrontation. They just refused to talk to each other in that book as well. So I'm thinking that maybe there's something else going on. And this is me stretching for straws, but some other way that the dwarfs have to find out this kind of information, or they have some other mythical entity that kind of helped them mold their civilization, which weren't the Celestians, which we've always assumed were the Celestians, but now we're revealed that they had ways of finding out information outside of the Celestians.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah, no, that's me grasping the straws. Really,
Yeah,
I had no
it's
idea
like,
what the story was about.
yeah, to me, I really hope the elves and dwarfs are in the next book. So, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, but
I still think arrogance is the better title for them than fracture. But unless the elves are going to fracture, like you said, Eastern kindred and things like that, and the dwarfs are definitely going to fracture. So they're coming. So
yeah,
I mean, free dwarfs and the imperial dwarfs, it's got to cook off. So at some point. So, but to me, this was just something written on the front of a book, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of meat to it, and it could have been so much better. And I struggled with what's the point with that. But the only thing I can see is, for some reason, they made a point to point out that because Karen Golick, I think it was called Karen Moore before it was renamed. That's the only thing I can see here. It's like the story before that. Doesn't add anything. Doesn't feel like it added something, but it could mean something once we have a little bit more information, once 4th edition comes out. I've got a feeling it's got something to do with that, with them knowing about the Celestians before they even met them, but I don't know. And again, it's
okay.
One of those ones that probably should have been a little bit more obvious.
Yeah, but if they did, okay, big deal. Unless there's something else in there, but
well, it could be the case of how did they know? If they've been isolated underground all this time, how did they know about the Celestians? Who told them about the Celestians?
Yeah, I'm sure they had spies running around. Everybody just wasn't sealed underground all the time. I'm sure they had eyes and ears floating around somewhere. So.
Maybe, but I mean that's the best.
That's what I'd have to assume. But yeah, well, that's it. I mean, again, I got elves and dwarfs.
Elves and dwarfs in the next book.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can take away from it, because I mean, take a look. If you look at the stories, who's getting featured? So except for Orloff's a little different. You got the EOD. I guess they're telling you that they're going to be in 4th edition. I think that's a good thing. I think you'll have EOD and Northern Alliance, and I certainly think the humans, elves, and dwarves will be around. So, but I mean, I do hope got out of it. But that's why it fell to my number 5. It's like that one I really didn't get the point, and I hope to get the point sometime in the future. And this might be Elliot's first story, but thank you, Elliot. But again, it's a little obscure for me. So
I liked it, but I do think they need. I hope that there is a plan here and that these stories will make more sense in hindsight. If they don't, I think sometimes it's better just to not do it. Like I appreciate this lore and then getting a lot more lore, but also if you're going to tell a story, make it worth telling. There's no point on just putting content out there for content's sake. But that's just me looking at it from the lens that I have right now. So hopefully, once we get our hands on the book and maybe there's some dots that connect here, helpful. We know that these could be stories that are contained within the book, because we were told that the book lore would be told through stories and perspectives rather than just being told this is what it is, like we had previously, which I'm not really a huge fan on, but it could be done in a way that it's good. But we'll see. Maybe these are just all stories that are contained within the 4th edition book. If it is, be a little bit disappointed. To be honest, I'd be a little bit disappointed if all these stories are just inside of the 4th edition and all they've been doing is copying and pasting them over. But I guess we'll see whether these acts make sense. But that's the end of the 5 batches. So I think we both agree our favorite out of the batch is definitely the Passing Years. I think that's my favorite.
Yeah, that one's definitely the leader of the pack, without a
leader
doubt.
of the pack right there. And I think it's I'd like to see more of those kind of stories too. And we've still got 4 more to go through, and we will go through them in another episode in the future. But before we do that, we'll go through some feedback that we've got from the last episode. So thanks everyone for listening last time, and we really do appreciate it. There's a lot more people that listen to us on Spotify than it's YouTube, which is quite funny because it's typically the reverse for some of our other shows like Halo.
Yes.
So really, it's kind of weird. Like all the lore stuff seems to do better on Spotify. Or Spotify, or however you're seeing this, we upload it to Spotify and they put it onto whatever. But it doesn't do so well on YouTube. But when we're talking about Halo, or talking about even just the Kings of War, like the actual game itself, it does better on YouTube, and it's really weird to have that that flip. But anyway, Adrian Scott 4288, who is one of our regulars on the YouTube that just watches on when we release the episode live. I really do appreciate your time there, Adrian. He mentions great episode as usual. Overall, really enjoyed the stories, but my favorite of the first bunch has been Out of Control. There is something I find immensely appealing about a megalomaniac struggling to cope with an incompetent slave army. I do appreciate that. Yeah, I do have to agree with that one. It's a good one. Regarding your discussion about salamanders versus the Sakali Empire, I think the salamanders have a very good reason to fight them. Their home islands and entire race is protected by magic. The energy shield and fires of the former queen Golath, I never can say her name, but starts with a K. So the anti-magic agenda of the Zakali would represent a massive threat to their very survival of the race. Completely fair argument.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think there's like something about their boats as well. They a lot of their navy came from either Zakali or just those patterns or so forth. But this is why I don't think the Zakali is really doing on the side of good. They're basically saying, we believe that you guys can't be trusted with this, so we are going to take it from you regardless of whether you want it or not. And it really feels like very much like a colonialism, or kind of like weapons of mass destruction. We get to decide what you do with them kind of deal. That we're just going to go over there and kill all these innocent people, but at least we are in control of this thing once again. But we are noble. We're noble about it. It's like, no, you can't be just killing innocent people and going, yeah, we're the good guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, but in this particular edition of the game, we've gotten rid of good, neutral, and evil. So
yeah, I mean, good. That alignment's always a shade of gray anyway, and everyone believes they're good or on the side of right, I should say, rather than good. I mean, every bad guy, the best villains in history are the ones that think they're right. So
right. Well, that's Basileia. They're so good, they're bad.
Yeah.
I mean, somehow they got turned into that, and I mean, I get it, but so the Zerkali, in their mind, they're doing the right thing, and they're doing something that's going to save the world and everything else, because we don't know, we're too stupid to know what the heck's going on with this magic. So they're going to come in and take care of it so that Pannilore continues to exist in their mind. So they think they're the champions. Tell that the halfling that just got mowed over, with them invading and tramping over, the land, trying to get to the rift and seal it up, tap it, whatever they're going to do with it.
Yeah,
they've got
I agree.
So
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and it'll be interesting to see how they tell that story, of whether. At what point are we once we got the invasion book, at what point do we end the story until we get the next bit? Are we going to be like ending the story of like the reached this point in their invasion, or is it kind of going to be ambiguous about where they actually are with it? So it'll be interesting to see it play out
in that book, Dave. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I actually my partner, lovely enough for my Christmas present, gave me enough money to actually order the book from Mantic.
Nice.
So I'll be getting the book and getting the map. I'll be putting the map up there. Audio listeners, I'm pointing to a map that's behind me. So yeah, I'm going to be putting it up on the wall, and it's going to be really fun to dive into it. And for those out there that are curious, me and Mark will be doing an episode on all the 4th edition lore in February. We're going to give it a two-month grace period, and then we're going to really dive into the lore and dissect it a little bit, and just basically lay it all out there. So if you have any questions, reach out to us and put it there, because we'll answer those questions as we go through the lore explaining. So thanks, Adrian, for your comment. And if you got a comment out there, leave it either on Spotify, YouTube, just wherever. These are really cool discussion points to bring up as we talk about lore. And the last one was from Joshua King. That's on our Spotify, saying, nice work. I'll be annoying you on Discord about this lore stuff. So yeah, make sure you join our Discord for both the Golden Celestian competition, but also just talk about lore, because the only time I ever get to talk about Kings of War really here and on Discord and stuff like that. I don't really have anyone in real life, because when you're in your 30s, it's hard to make friends. But I don't really have anyone that I play the game with or anything. So Mark gets sick of listening to me all the time to talk about it. So yeah,
I enjoy it myself.
Good. But yeah, reach out and just let us know what you guys want to hear about. I mean, I'm happy to do a bit of a breakdown of any particular topic. And yeah, I really wanted to actually do a breakdown of Harpy's Rift, of what happened there, and also some of the other events, such as like the Edge of the Abyss, and kind of like elaborate, kind of explain all of that kind of stuff there. Cool. So I think that's the end of the show there. We're going to reveal the answer to the question, though. But Mark, do you have any final words before we do that?
Final words?
Anything you want to say about the stories or anything like that?
I'm looking forward to doing the next one. I've got some opinions on the next set, so it's going to take all the effort I can muster here to say nothing about them. So, but then we'll see if I'm right about this question. So,
cool.
I thought about it, and we'll see.
Yeah, and I don't think me and Mark have decided whether we're going to have time to record another episode before the end of the year. So, if
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. But Christmas and holidays it's a busy time. I'm working through the holidays, so we'll see how it is. But anyway, let's answer the question. So the question was, what short story in the Edge of the Abyss compilation was completely reconned in a novel? All right, Mark, what's your answer?
Well, I'm going to say The Seas Does Not Give Up Her Dead, only because of the going from male to female and changing everything else like that for the naiads. That's my answer. I don't know if it completely retconned, because there's Twilight Kin and EOD in there, but that's what I'm going to say.
All right, so you're going to say I have to
I'm going up with Clint Warner's entry in the book, because I think it's a great
do not give up her dead.
Yep. Yeah. I love that story. I thought it was really well written, but so that's it. That's the one I'm going to lay my money down on.
All right. I'm going to tell you right now that you are completely wrong. The answer was Eyes Unblinking by Mark DeSantis. And it was reconned in Nature's Night. So basically, the story in the Edge of the Abyss of Eyes Unblinking was Dylan Gummer. And essentially, they were responding to... the Basilians were responding to a request from the Green Lady for reinforcements. And so they send the reinforcements. They enter into the Forest of Galher. They get attacked by the Edge of the Abyss. The Dylan gets separated and ends up meeting the druid. The druid was it Curlis, and then Charlotte. There's Synth,
and Charlotte,
and then eventually meets the Green Lady. And then the Green Lady says, hey, you have to pay me, you have to pledge your allegiance to me. She doesn't say this. It's kind of you find out at the end. You have to pledge your allegiance and join the Order of the Green Lady in order for me to help out your friends who are getting attacked. And he agrees. Now, that's the end of that story. What it's revealed in Nature's Night is Dylan tells the story again to, I think it's an elf. I can't remember her name. But reveals that whole story is what everyone told everyone, not actually what happened. He's never met the Green Lady. He never met the Druid. He never met Charlotte. They all just assumed he did all these things, and then that kind of spread everywhere. And at the beginning of Nature's Night, there's a dad telling his kid about the story, which is what that short story was. And then later in the story, you find out it's just what everyone believed, and he just went with it. So he's been living with the shame of thinking he's some hero. Turns out the main villain of the short story, the demon, I think it was Lord Zelagrag, which is this this archdemon, which is implied his head gets cut off in the short story. Didn't. He survived. It turns out he just ran through a portal. And that's revealed in that novel. So that the story that you're seeing as the short story is just what everyone else got told. But what actually happened was Dylan's version of events in Nature's Night, which is revealed. So Dylan is seen as a hero when he's actually not. And
so
it
he's
turns
got
out
a good
Dylan is
story.
basically, and it turns out he's a little bit more pathetic. Like it's implied that he comes from a very noble, rich family. Turns out his family is not actually noble or rich. They're kind of like falling on hard times. And it's a very interesting way of reconning something, because it's not to say that story doesn't exist, because in a way it does. It exists in everyone's stories of Dylan, of him saying it, but the reality of what actually happens is what happens in Nature's Night. So I would suggest anyone out there read that short story, read Nature's Night, and I think it's a really interesting way of reconning it, because it gives different personalities to the characters in that short story. It kind of like, even though like Bartimer Hollis, one of the ones in the short story, kind of they act all friendly with Dylan, act like he's, just a normal bloke, but in reality, they don't really like him that much when they hear it in Nature's Night. So it's a very interesting way of doing it. And I think it was a very interesting reveal. And I think it was that when you kind of pointed out the way I've done the question, I think it's a really cool thing to look into. So I would suggest anyone out there read Nature's Night, read that short story.
Very cool. I'm going to go pick this book back up again. It's got all the short stories, which is really cool. And we've been talking about short stories. So, and it was the first book. So, Tales of Mantica. So, yeah.
And there's a lot of
good idea. I think I'm going
issues
to
in
have to
it.
do that. So,
yeah, there's a lot of canon issues in there, but I think one of the interesting parts of any franchise is how writers and people that are running the franchises, how they deal with these canon issues. And I think part of the fun as a fan is watching them try and figure it out how to make it all work. Because sometimes it doesn't, and that's fair, but sometimes they're like, all right, well, it was named this thing, now we're naming it this thing. How do we make that make sense? And I think there's another short story in there called The Ratcatcher, where Dustin Rootwell, who's in Broken Alliance, he's the guy leading the Halfling forces in Broken Alliance. He goes to a city of Norwood, which is actually renamed to Berlonvici in the League of Roydena. So it's actually called two different things, and it's the reason why Bernovici didn't participate when the League of Roydena and the Halflings started their civil war. They stayed out of it because of the events that are in the short story Ratcatcher. It's written by Scott, who wrote both. But they did rename Norwood. Yeah, they did rename Northwood to Bernovici. Never explained why. I personally believe it's because of the influence of Lord Draveld, and Norwood maybe was a halfling name, and they're like, no, let's not call it a halfling name. Let's rename it to this during the time, because it's like a 16-year gap between that story and when Broken Alliance occurs. So, but they never explained it. But I kind of like ideas like that, or maybe in the future, one little off comment of how to explain it. I don't know. I like that kind of stuff.
I think that's pretty cool. Well, there's a lot of history that shows that things are named two different things. So, like we got the Battle of Bull Run, and then, the South calls it Manassas. So, I mean, it's, so yeah, they're just two different names for the same battle. So
exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, I would recommend anyone read up the book, and there's some good stories in there.
Yeah. It came out in July of 2018. So it's been around for a while. Yeah. So, which is
not
nice.
Even 10 years old though.
Yeah. Well, if you take a look at it, it's about 3 years after second edition was released. Yeah. So it was our very first published book. So I've got my copy upstairs. I love that book. So it was our very first one, and so it's got a special place in my heart.
Mine too. I love the stories, and I think it's a good foundation to what we've got now, because it was the first books, and now we're getting so many good quality writers coming on, and I'm hoping this to continue, and the next year will be very, very interesting. So I guess we'll end things there, Mark. I do have one little last thing to say, but do you have any final words before I attempt to wrap this up?
No, hopefully we'll see you before the end of the year. But if we don't, everybody enjoy the holiday season.
Yeah, so this will be coming out on the 16th of December. I should put it out there. Is a lot of people may or may not know out there. I'm currently waiting for a heart transplant. I've been now waiting for 2 years when I was told initially it was 6 months. So it's been a while. So I've been waiting for a while. I love this machine. And for the last 2 years, I've had a lot of people in my personal life kind of encourage me to set up a Give a Little page. Because I want to have 12 months off after my transplant. It is what they recommend for me to do. Unfortunately, from a financial point of view, I never would be able to afford it. So after a while of being hounded about it, I finally caved in and said, I'll set up a Give a Little page to close on the 22nd of December. So I'm only leaving it open for a month. So what I'm going to do is in the link below of this episode and also on the YouTube, I'll put a link to my Give a Little. It will shut on the 22nd of December. So if you're listening to after that, I'm sorry, but I don't feel right taking money from people to begin with, but I did agree I'll give it my honest shot opening it up. And every dollar does honestly help me, and I'm extremely grateful. I'm actually going to do a fundraiser on my on Twitch streaming. I'm going to stream Arc Raiders and a bunch of other games on the 20th. I think it's the 22nd, 20th my time, 20th of December. I'll put a link to all that below if anyone actually cares. I'm not expecting it. It's just something that my arm got twisted on it, and I said I would give it an honest go because this whole thing makes me a bit uncomfortable asking for money. But sometimes, realistically, this is going to be probably one of the hardest things I will ever hopefully need to go through. I don't think a lot of people can relate to going for a heart transplant. No one's really. A lot of people can't give me advice about it. It's just take as much time as you need to recover, and I'm going to try and give them on a shot. So that's just my little spiel there, and I'll put the links below for anyone that is interested.
There you go. Well, we're all behind you, Dave. So
yeah, hopefully. I'm just hoping it's not for a long time, but I also I want it sooner rather than later. It's like a weird bag because I'm over living off a machine. It ruins your life after a while. So anyway,
absolutely. There you go. Cool. All right. So any other final words or?
No. Send in your questions for our next episode, and the more questions we have, the more encouragement we have to make the next one. So yeah, I'll see you all soon.
There you go. And go out, grab Stand to Cal Inspire too. So, that was it's a good book. So go check it out and get yourself all lubed up and ready to go for 4th edition. So
exactly.
All right, everyone. Well, until next time, take care.
See ya.